तो ये जो पैसेज है ये प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन है कैट का। इस पैसेज को अटेम्प्ट कहीं कोशिश करेंगे तो पहले इसके क्वेश्चन अगर अपन देखेंगे तो क्या है क्वेश्चन। विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कैन नॉट बी इन्फर्ड फ्रॉम द पैसेज। इन द पैसेज द फ्रेज लिटिल पार्वीनियस refers to the author pinned for 2 cent coins instead of 1 cent pie because what does the author mean by nowadays the moralist risk seeming at odds with morality। तो सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन जो अपन सॉल्व करते हैं, इन द पैसेज द फ्रेज लिटिल पार्वेनियस रिफर्स टू। तो पैसेज में लिटिल पार्वेनियस का मतलब क्या है? लिटिल पार्वेनियस लिटिल पार्वेनियस ढूंढना पड़ेगा अपन को। लिटिल पार्वेनियस कहाँ है यार? लिटिल पार्वेनियस तो कहीं मेरे को दिखा ही नहीं। Special little machine. The 4 cent pie was made by a special little machine. हाँ, and parents who encourage this weakness appropriate to little parvenus were bringing up their children in the foolish theater of I'd like to but I can't। तो today citizen and victim of a consumer society, a civilization of excess and waste which the society of the 30s was not, I realized that those dear and now departed elders were right. Two 2 cent coins instead of one at 4 cent did not signify quandering economically speaking, but symbolically they surely did. It was for this precise reason that I yearned for them, because two ice cream suggested excess, and this was precisely why they were denied to me, because they look indecent, an insult to poverty, a display of fictitious privilege, a boast of wealth. Only spoiled children ate 2 cones at once. Those children who in fairy tales were rightly punished, as Pinocchio was when rejected, the skin and the stalk, and parents who encouraged this weakness appropriate to little Parvenius were bringing up their children in the foolish theatre of I'd like to but I can't. They were preparing them to turn up at tourist class check-in and with a fake Gucci bag bought from a street peddler on the beach at Rimini। तो इसमें जो पार्ट दी है वो क्या दी है कि and parents who encourage this weakness appropriate to little Parvenius were bringing up their children in the foolish theatre of I'd like to but I can't। तो in the passage the phrase little Parvenius refers to naughty maggots, old hags, arrogant people, young upstarts, foolish kids। देखो यहाँ पे क्या दिया, पेरेंट्स इंकरेज अप्रोप्रिएट टू लिटिल पार्वेनस। आई थिंक अप्रोप्रिएट टू लिटिल पार्वेनस का मतलब है arrogant people, old hags, naughty midgets, young upstarts, foolish kids। क्योंकि मैं पास परफॉर्मेंस देखता हूँ तो मैं तो इस क्वेश्चन को अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा। मैं नहीं करूँगा इसको अटेम्प्ट, है ना। जो मैं अटेम्प्ट करूँगा सिर्फ मैं वो लिखूँगा लेकिन मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि एक गेस तो कर सकते हैं, तो अभी तो मैं इसको अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा. फिर द ऑथर pined for 2 cent coins of 1 4 cent pie because. तो ये देखो, ये जो ऊपर लाइन लिखी है कि द 2 cent cone वॉज वेरी स्मॉल. देखो, एक बार पैसेज पढ़ लेते हैं. व्हेन आई वॉज लिटिल चिल्ड्रन वर बॉट टू काइंड्स ऑफ आइसक्रीम सोल्ड फ्रॉम दोज वाइट वैगन्स with canopies made of silvery metal, either the 2% cone or the 4% cream pie. The 2 cent cone was very small, in fact, it could fit comfortably into a child's hand, and it was made by taking the ice cream from its container with a special scoop and piling it on the cone. Granny always suggested I eat only a part of the cone, then throw away the pointed end because it had been touched by the vendor's hand. Though that was the best part, nice and crunchy, and it was regularly eaten secret after a pretense of discarding it. The 4% pie was made by a special little machine, also silvery, which pressed two discs of sweet biscuit against a cylindrical section of ice cream. First, you had to thrust your tongue into a gap between the biscuit until it touched the central nucleus of ice cream. Then, gradually, you ate the whole thing. The biscuit surfaces softening as they become soaked in creamy nectar. Granny had no advice to give her. In theory, the pies had been touched only by the machine. In practice, the vendor had held them in his hand while giving them to us, but it was impossible to isolate the contaminated area. I was fascinated, however, by some of my peers whose parent bought them not a 4% pie but 2% cones. These privileged children advanced proudly with one cone in their right hand and one in their left, and expertly moving their head from side to side, they licked one and the other. The तो ये किसको प्रेफर कर रहा है? This liturgy seemed to me so sumptuously inevitable that many times I was asked to celebrate it. In vain, my elders were inflexible. A 4% ice, yes, but 2% absolutely no. As anyone can see, neither mathematics nor economics nor dietetics justify this refusal. Nor did hygiene, assuming that in due course the tips of both cones were discarded. The pathetic and obviously mental justification was that a boy concerned with turning his eyes from one cone to other was more inclined to stumble over stones, steps, or cracks in the pavement. I dimly sensed was there was another secret justification, cruelly pedagogical, that but I was unable to grasp it. विजुअल अपील हो सकता है आंसर इसका. Today, citizens and victims of a consumer society, a civilization of excess and waste, with the society of the 30s was not realized that those dear and now departed words were lied. The 2% coins of 4% did not signify squandering economically, but symbolically they surely did. It was for this precise reason that I yearned for them, because two ice cream suggested excess, and this probably they were denied to me because they looked indecent answer to poverty, a display of fictitious privilege, a boast of wealth. An insult to poverty, a display of fictitious privilege, boast of. Only spoiled children ate two cones at once. Those children who in fairy tales were lightly punished. A Pinocchio was when he rejected his skin, and some parents who encouraged the weakness. Giving them the children's future, I'd like to, but I can't. We're preparing them to turn up a tourist class checker with a fake Gucci bag from a street peddler. So even with a fake Gucci bag bought from a street peddler on a cheap. Nowadays, a more or less risk seeming at odds with morality in a world. मुझे मैं थर्ड भी अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा, पर गैस कर लेंगे आखिर में. What does the author mean by nowadays the moralist risk seeming at odds with morality? What does the author mean by nowadays the moralist risk seeming at odds with morality? Nowadays the moralist risks seeming at odds with morality. Nowadays, the moralist risks seeming at odds with morality. In a world where a consumer civilization now wants every adult to be spoiled and promise them always something more, from the wristwatch in the box of detergent to the bonus bangle sheathed with the magazine it accompanies in a plastic envelope, like the parents of those ambidextrous gluttons. So I invade. The consumer civilization pretend to give more but actually gives for 4 cents what is worth 4 cents. You will throw away the old transistor radio to purchase a new one that boasts an alarm clock as well. But some inexpressible defect in the mechanism guarantee that the radio lasts only a year. What I mean by nowadays, the moralist risk seeming at odds with morality. ये वाला भी मैं अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा. Which of the following cannot be inferred from the passage? Today's society is more extreme society of, हाँ ये तो है. Endless lightly suggested that a boy turning eyes from one cone to other was more likely to fall. हाँ. 3 का लिए मैं मार्क करूँगा डी ऑप्शन. अब पता नहीं वो सही है कि नहीं. ये एक ऑप्शन में मार्क करूँगा. Elders rightly suggested that a boy turning eyes from one cone to other was more likely. वो ये भी बोला है. Seeming to promise more the content. मैं ये नहीं दिया तो मैं 1 का बी मार्क करूँगा. ठीक है, तो मैं ये 2 ही मार्क करूँगा. अब इसके मैं आंसर देख लेता हूँ. अब बाकी मैं गैस कर रहा हूँ. तो गैस में अगर मैं देखूँ तो है ना, ये मार्क किए हैं. गैस वाले कौन से हैं? सेकंड का है. सेकंड मेरे को लगता है कि लिटिल पार्वेनियस, नॉटी midgets, arrogant people, naughty foolish kids, old hags, naughty young upstarts. सेकंड का तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा. सेकंड में अगर वही करना होगा तो मेरे ख्याल से मैं ई करूँगा गैस. और थर्ड हो गया, 1 हो गया, तो 4 और 5 ना. 4 बस है. 4. मैं 4 का डी मार्क करूँगा. देखते हैं अब इसमें सही क्या है. फर्स्ट का सी है तो ये गलत हो गया, -1. और 2 का डी है तो ये भी गलत है, मतलब गैस वाला. 3 का बी है तो ये भी गलत है, तो -2 नंबर आ रहे हैं. और 4 का बी है, सारे गलत हैं. अच्छा, अब रीज़न देखते हैं क्यों गलत है. तो रीज़न क्या है कि जो रियल रीज़न है, पहला क्वेश्चन क्या है कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कैन नॉट बी इन्फर्ड फ्रॉम द पैसेज. तो द रीज़न elders give to the children to dissuade them from buying 2 ice cream was that a boy turning ice from one cone to another, one in each hand, was more likely to fall. But as rightly guessed by the author, deeper reason for parents to fail to buy 2 ice cream. Therefore, the claim that adults rightly suggested that a boy turning ice from one cone to other was more likely to fall is incorrect. ठीक है। मतलब वही वो कह रहा है कि ये जो रीज़न है ना, डीपर रीज़न है पेरेंट रिफ्यूज़ल का, दो आइसक्रीम का, तो इसीलिए तो ये वाला फिर रीज़न गलत हो गया। डी क्या कह रहा है, द वर्ड पार्वेनियस रिफर्स टू अ पर्सन ऑफ हम्बल ओरिजिन हु हैज़ गेन्ड वेल्थ। इन अदर वर्ड्स लिटिल पार्वेनियस मीन यंग अपस्टार्ट्स। मैंने क्या फूलिश किड्स लिखा था। ओह। बी क्या है, कंसीडर द फॉलोइंग सेंटेंस फ्रॉम द पैसेज, दिस liturgy seemed to me to celebrate it. From this sentence, we can understand that the main reason why the author wanted 2 cents cone instead of 4 cents was because it suggested intemperance. तो कौन सा मतलब लिंग्विस्टिक वाला कौन सा है? This liturgy seemed to be simplicity, but many times I was asked to celebrate in vain. तो चलो ओके। फोर्थ क्या है? फिफ्थ भी है क्या? According to author, the justification for refusal to let him eat 2 could possibly dialectic diatonic diastolic डा नहीं डाइटिक तो मेरे ख्याल से डाइटिक सोल्यूशन तो था नहीं। डाइटेटिक्स तो नहीं है। मैं ये वाले को भी अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा। डाइडेटिक डाइटोनिक डायस्टोलिक पता नहीं, मैं अटेम्प्ट नहीं करूँगा, मैं गेस भी नहीं कर रहा इसको। देखते हैं फिफ्थ का आंसर क्या है। फिफ्थ का आंसर है ए, डाइडैक्टिक। डाइडैक्टिक का भी कुछ मतलब होगा। देखो इसमें क्या है कि द पैथेटिक एंड ऑब्वियसली mendacious justification for the boy consenting with turning his eyes from one to the other was inclined to stumble over stone steps or cracks in the pavement. I dimly sensed that there was another secret justification. I was unable to account the justification of pedagogical didactic comes closest to the meaning. ये वर्ड्स वाला बहुत ज़्यादा पैसेज है, बहुत ज़्यादा वर्ड्स वाला पैसेज है। Refer to the lines of the parallel. Nowadays the moralist risk seeming at odds with morality. In a world where the consumer civilization now wants even adults to be spoiled and promise them always something more, from the wristband in the box of detergent and to the bunch of mango shuttle when single. फोर्थ ऑप्शन है क्या? Nowadays, a more or less scheming at odds in the world.